Today we're focusing on HIV and nutrition. We want to tell you what exactly you should eat if you're HIV positive, and which foodstuffs should you avoid if you're HIV positive, and how many times should you eat in a day, and all those things are what we're going to be dwelling in today. Remember, before we go any further, to like and to subscribe to this channel. Also remember to follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. Our Twitter handle is Dr. Joe 263, and on Instagram it's Dr. Joe 263. Facebook is just Dr. Joe 263. HIV and nutrition is always a problem. I always get questions from a lot of patients asking me, what exactly should I eat when I'm HIV positive? Number one, I need you to know that when you're HIV positive, this is when you need to have a balanced diet. By a balanced diet, we mean you should eat all 4 nutrients. One, you need to eat carbohydrates, you need to eat proteins, you need to eat fats, and also need to eat micro elements. So these are the 4 nutrients that you should eat in your diet. Every meal that you take a day should have all these 4 ingredients. Now, the number of meals that you should take on a daily basis, you should take a minimum of 3 meals on a daily basis. Breakfast should be your best meal. In your breakfast, please make sure you've got some protein, some carbohydrate, some fats, and also some micronutrients. From your carbohydrates, the source of carbohydrate that you can get in your breakfast, there could be some starches like bread. We prefer brown bread if you're HIV positive. We also encourage whole wheat bread. This is healthier compared to refined white bread. So I encourage you to take whole wheat or brown bread. It's better for you to do that. Then when it comes to your protein, we encourage that you take a bit of lean meat. You can have a piece of beef, you can have a sausage, you can have some pork, or maybe bacon could do if you can afford it. Those are some of the proteins that you can add in your breakfast. Then when it comes to fats, usually from the protein that you already put in your breakfast, you already get enough fats. Then the problem mainly comes with your micronutrients. These are the most important things when you're HIV positive. Micronutrients will help with your eyesight, they will help with your skin, they will help with your memory, they will help with a lot of things. So these are the things that are very important. So in your micronutrients, what you should eat, to encourage that you eat a bit of vegetables. If it's your breakfast, you could add some lettuce, you could add some lentils, you could add something. Groundnuts could also do in your breakfast to help boost the micronutrient component of your breakfast. When it comes to your lunch, now this is where you get a bit of a heavy meal. Usually in our settings, people eat lunch, heavier lunch than breakfast, but in general we encourage that people should eat heavy breakfast and light lunch. So when you have your lunch, say you're having rice, it should just be a spoonful, a dishing spoonful of rice, or something that can fit in your handful of rice. That's enough for your lunch. And then you add a bit of gravy or some soup. If you love soup, you should also add a bit of proteins. If you had beef in the morning or pork in the morning, we encourage that you go on to some white meat. Add on a piece of chicken or just a little bit of fish. Get a Kariba brim and enjoy the fish with your lunch. During that lunchtime also add a bit of vegetables. You could add your spinach, you could add your kovo, any kind of vegetables will do when you're having your lunch. Then the third meal should be your supper. The supper, you say, should not be very heavy, but Africans in general prefer to have a huge supper. I can't sleep without a full stomach. We do not encourage that because you digest better during the day and you use more energy during the day. So it is during the day that we encourage you to eat more. That's why we encourage a heavier breakfast, not a heavy supper. So when it comes to your supper, make it also light. Maybe a little bit of sadza. When it's sadza, make it a fist size of your sadza. It's enough. Then add a bit of protein. When it comes to meat, if you're having beef or pork, maybe just 2 pieces of pork or 2 pieces of beef, the size of a matchbox. The size of a matchbox. I know, especially men, they love plenty of meat. They want the plate to be half meat and the rest of the things will be half. Actually, we say half of your plate should be fruits and vegetables. 50% of your plate should be fruits and vegetables. Then the starch is just a little bit there, a bit of protein. Then fat in general, we encourage that the fat that is already in the meat or in the protein that you're taking is enough for your fat requirements during the day. Then also in between your meals, maybe between your breakfast and your lunch, you could also have a snack. You could add a fruit, you could add some snack in between. You could have some ground nuts along the way, you could add some maize cob along the way in between your meals. So you could have 2 snacks and 3 major meals. This is quite good for your health and for your nutrition. For now, let us take a short break and come back and go further and discuss the nutritional management of HIV. Welcome back to the second segment of Dr. Joe. Today we're discussing the nutritional management of HIV. We've spoken about what exactly is a balanced diet, and we've spoken about the number of meals that a normal human being should eat on a daily basis. And if you're HIV positive, we encourage that you should eat more of this. Now let's move on a bit into the fluids that you should take. We say in general a human being should take at least 2 liters of fluids a day, of water in particular a day, 2 liters of water a day. So that means with your breakfast, you take at least a glass of water, that's about 500 mils of water. With your lunch, you take another glass of water, that's another 500 mils. With your supper, you take another glass of water, that's another 500 mils. It's up to you what you prefer. If you're on the obese side, encourage that you take the glass of water before you eat, so that this will take up some space in your stomach. Then when you eat, there's less space, so it means you're going to get full with less quantities. That is going to help you lose weight if you're obese. If you are slim or if you want to gain weight, to encourage that you take the water after the food. So in general, that's what we encourage. So if you're HIV positive, the water is even more important. Why is the water so important? It is important to maintain your skin tegor. It is the water, 60% of your body is made up of fluids, of water. So if you lose water through diarrheas, vomiting, and any other illnesses, you get a fever because of HIV, then you get dehydration. So you need to take plenty of fluids, especially if you're HIV positive. You need to take at least 2 liters of water on a daily basis. Then on top of the water, you also need other fruits. In terms of other liquids that you should take, we encourage fruit juices. These are the best fluids that you should take. 100% fruit juices. You could buy your own blender, then you blenderize your fruits, you put your oranges, you put your apples, you make your own fruit juice, then you drink it. That way you know it's exactly 100% pure fruit juice. These other fruit juices, yes, you can buy fruit juices from shops, different brands. Some of them we trust they are 100% fruit juices, but we are not 100% sure if they are. But fizzy drinks, we encourage that you should not take fizzy drinks. Do not take any fizzy drinks, especially if you're HIV positive. They do not add much value to your nutrition. In fact, they actually bring down your health. So we encourage water and pure fruit juices. These are the liquids that we encourage that you take when you are HIV positive. Before we go any further with this segment, I want you to listen to a nutritionist, a specialist in health and nutrition, talking about nutrition and HIV.
My name is Molefia Manyasha. I'm a registered dietitian. I want to talk about dietary management of HIV complications, especially the nutritionally related complications. As we all know, HIV is, we have HIV in Zimbabwe, and it's still very prevalent within the country. Yes, it's being managed very well, but nutritionally we find that a lot of people struggle. So today we want to just talk about how it is that we manage the dietary related complications of HIV. So we find that a lot of patients, when they come in, they have problems with malnutrition, diarrhea, vomiting, and they tend, as a result, they tend to lose a lot of weight. And that then complicates their treatment, because for the ARVs to work well, a person needs to be well nutritionally. So as a result, it becomes a vicious cycle where a person continues to lose weight, and then the ARVs are not working very well, and their nutritional intake is not very good. So we want to make sure that with our treatment, nutritional treatment, we break that cycle to enable a person to be able to take in food well, so that they're able to fight whatever infections that come as a result of having HIV. So how do we treat a person if they have, for example, diarrhea? So if someone comes in with nutritionally related a complication such as diarrhea, normally, obviously, their first step is to go and see the doctor, and then the doctor refers that person to a dietitian to manage that condition. And when they come in, we normally recommend that we want them to stop or to reduce their intake of dairy products, because dairy products do precipitate diarrhea. So we want you to minimize as much as possible, even to stop if possible, taking in dairy products. Here I'm talking about the non-fermented ones. We then encourage them to say, if you have to take in a milk product, you can use fermented dairy products, such as, for example, the yogurts and some cheese, but we want them to be able to to pay attention to the fact that if they eat these products, are they going to get sicker, or does the diarrhea kind of minimize? So we just try and we try and have that counseling session to find out how that person is doing. Also, we encourage that that person eats what we call a lot of more of soluble fiber than insoluble fiber. So soluble fiber, you're going to find it in products such as oats porridge. And insoluble fiber, you're going to find it in things like fruits, like apples, and things like vegetables. So we want you to try and minimize things like the apples and the vegetables, because they have what we call insoluble fiber that can increase the rate of diarrhea. We obviously want to encourage you to continue to take your sugar and salt solution or oral rehydration solution, so that you don't dehydrate yourself when you do have that diarrhea. And for example, if you don't have an appetite, we encourage that you eat dry foods, because dry foods tend to be better tolerated than things that have got soup in them. Because some people then say, as a result of the diarrhea, I don't feel like eating much, I feel nauseous, I feel weak. So we try and encourage that someone munches on dry foods. It really helps to then help with the vomiting and with the diarrhea as well. Another complication an HIV positive person can have is to, like I said earlier, to lose weight. Losing weight is a very, very big problem, and we try and want to combat that as much as possible. So if, for example, they come to the hospital, some doctors recommend that that person is admitted into hospital and they are managed until they are well enough to leave the hospital. Or if it's not very bad, they manage them as an outpatient. Now, if they're being managed as an outpatient, we normally recommend that we give them a nutritionally adequate, balanced diet. Here we're talking about the fact that they should take in their carbohydrates, their vegetables, they should take in their fats, they should take in their protein. Protein is very important to build muscle. But at the same time, they need to be able to control their portion sizes. We don't want them to overdo it, because overnutrition is also not a very good thing. So here we're encouraging a person to eat in a healthy way. We are saying they should eat their 3 standard meals a day and have their snacks in between. So how does a standard meal look? We want you to eat at least half a plate of fruits and vegetables. Your plate structure should be fruits and vegetables, half of your plate, and then a quarter of the plate should be your starch, then your quarter of the plate should be your protein. Protein here, we want protein that is of a high biological value. Now, high biological value proteins, here we're talking about meat products. So meat and meat products. So for example, we're talking about your eggs, we're talking about your matemba, your kapenta, we're talking about your meat, you're talking about your chicken. Those are what we call our meat and meat products, right? And your milk. So we want you to eat more of that than the plant-based, because those ones are going to build your muscles faster. All right, not that I'm saying don't eat plant-based protein, but we're just saying if that person has issues with losing a lot of weight at that time, we want a more high biological value protein. All right. And your starches, we want to ensure that you eat whole grain products. Whole grain here, I'm talking about one grain that is not over processed. Okay, so we want to make sure that if you eat your whole grain, you feel fuller for longer, and you tend to go to the toilet on a regular basis compared to if you eat refined foods. So here we're talking about your whole wheat bread. We're talking about more of your gaiwa, in terms of if it's milli-meal, this is what we're talking about. And if you're able to afford, you are able to use things like munga or rukweza, things like that, if you are able to afford those things, because I understand these days they are very expensive, especially if you're here in Harare. And then we also want to encourage people to eat fruits and vegetables. Those are very, very important. So we're saying if you manage to at least eat 2 fruits a day and at least eat a vegetable at every meal, that would be very good. And don't forget to add your cooking oil, your margarine, to fortify your meals, to enrich your meals, so that you're able to get more energy in the little portion of food that you are eating at that time. And if the weight loss is extensive, we really recommend that you do take a supplement. There are a lot of supplements out there, but you can make supplements by yourself. You can make a milkshake, take your milk, take your banana, if you've got a blender, put it in a blender, add some sugar, a bit of cooking oil, and blend and make your own milkshakes. So those are things that we'd recommend that you're able to do, so that you're able to get as much nutrients as possible in the little food that you're taking in to gain back that weight. So with HIV positive patients, there is not one particular food that we encourage. We encourage that a person eats a variety of foods to ensure that they have a balanced meal every time. So as a nation, we are moving towards what we call food-based dietary guidelines that are going to guide a person or a patient in eating their meals every day. So we're saying, number one, make sure that you eat a variety of foods. Number two, beans, peas, lentils are foods that you can eat on a daily basis. Meat and meat products can be eaten on a daily basis if you're able to afford it, all right? Try and minimize the use of a lot of oils and sugary foods, because it's been associated with a lot of weight gain. So we want to make sure that we use very little of sugar, very little of oil, so that we're able to minimize weight gain. And also we want to ensure that we drink plenty of clean, safe water. Clean, safe water. I think these days we are hearing about typhoid, cholera, so we need to be careful where we get our water. Also, we want to encourage that when a person is cooking their food, when they're cutting their meat, that's not the same board that they should use to cut their vegetables. So ensure that you've got a separate board for meat and a separate board for vegetables. Because imagine you cutting up chicken and then using the same board to cut up vegetables or to cut up your salad. Then we're cross-contaminating, and then because someone already has HIV, they're at risk of getting infections faster. So we want to try and minimize that. And when you do cook your food, cook it very well, so that we're able to kill whatever germs that might be potentially in the food that we are preparing. So those are the guidelines that we were trying to work towards using when it comes to having counseling sessions with our HIV positive clients.
Welcome back to the third segment of Dr. Joe. Today, our focus is on nutrition and HIV. We've spoken about what is a balanced diet, how many times should you eat when you're HIV positive, what kinds of foodstuffs should you eat when you're HIV positive. Now, let's get to the conclusion of the matter. People always ask me about the herbs. Should we take herbs when you're HIV positive? Should we not take herbs? Or which herbs should we take and which herbs should we avoid? In general, when you come to herbs, it's a bit of a complicated subject. We do not have a clear path of saying these herbs are good for HIV and these herbs are not good for HIV. But we've got certain guidelines that we use when it comes to herbs. One, I want to tell you so that you know this once and for all. So far, there is no cure for HIV. There is no cure for HIV. That means conventional medicine, the ARVs, they don't cure HIV. They just treat the HIV. It also means the herbs that you might take, they can help you to boost your immunity. But there is no herb that has been proven to cure HIV. Yes, there are people who claim they've got herbs that cure HIV. There are people who claim that they can cure HIV using herbs. But please, listen to me and listen to me carefully. There is no scientific evidence of any drug or any herb that can cure HIV. So if anyone proposes to you, or if you think you've got a herb that cures HIV, please feel free to contact us on our numbers below, or on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, or you can even leave a comment on this platform, YouTube. Then we can get to discuss about it. But scientifically, so far, there is no scientific evidence to prove that there is a herb that can cure HIV. So now that that is settled, other herbs alfalfa, you can take garlic, ginger, you can take. They generally boost your immunity. They are good herbs, but they are not replacements to your ARVs. You should not replace your ARVs with any of these herbs. You take your ARVs, then you can also take these ordinary herbs. But the only challenge that we also have with the herbs medically, from the patient that we've seen, I once had a patient who was HIV positive, and they were taking the ARVs and they were also taking some herbs. The ARVs give an impact on your liver. Your liver is the one that degrades or breaks down the ARVs. It's the same organ that breaks down the herbs. So when you overdose your body with, you've got ARVs and you overdose your body with herbs, hoping that the higher concentrations you take, the faster you're going to be healed. I've seen a patient who came with renal failure and kidney and liver failure because of herbs. So please, when you're taking herbs, make sure you take in good quantities. Do not overdose. As it's always said, too much of everything is bad. And remember, there is no cure for HIV at the current moment. So please, do not be fooled and do not believe. If you think you've got a cure, or if you think you've got someone who's got a cure, bring it through. We put it through the labs. We test it. If there is cure, it's good. That's what we want. We want people to be cured. We want people to be healed. We want people to be healthy. Once that is done, then we're happy. Our agenda is to make sure that everyone who's HIV positive lives a good life. And ultimately, if we can get a cure that everyone is treated and no one is HIV positive, we live in an HIV negative and HIV free world. That's the goal. That's the agenda. That's what we want to achieve. If there is a way of achieving that, let us work together and get to that goal. But for now, remember, there is no scientific proof that there is a herb that cures HIV. Yes, you can use other herbs that are general. You can use beetroot, things like that. They help boost your immunity, but they will not cure your HIV. And please, do not be fooled that there is cure for HIV. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Dr. Joe. Remember to like droptv.com, and remember to share, to subscribe, and to like this as a program. And also remember to leave a comment. If you've got a topic that you want us to discuss, leave a comment below. If you've got a question, leave a comment below. And always, we thank you for your support. God bless.